More entrepreneur tools to help your business survive the quarantine on this episode of Unlock Your Wealth Today. Your life fully invested. Welcome to Unlock Your Wealth Today, your life fully invested. I'm your purveyor of prosperity and host, Heather Wagenhals, and on this episode, I'm making success simple for entrepreneurs yet again with some great tips to help you and your business survive the quarantine. And to do that, I'm bringing in number one best-selling author, Gabe Batista, to help me do that. Welcome to Unlock Your Wealth Today. Thanks for joining me on today's show.
Hey, Heather, it's good to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on. I've met you. I've already interviewed your counterpart, your co-conspirator, as the two of you refer to each other, John Paul Mendoza. So it's great to finally have a conversation with you because you're the other half, the techie side. So how are you going to help us survive the quarantine? And that's the name of your book, or at least it was, wasn't it?
Yes. So the name of the book is Remote Work for a Better World. And if you can go to Amazon and find it as a Remote Work for the Better World. But our original name, the original title was Survive the Quarantine, exactly. But it was banned. It was Jeff's Worlds, Jeff's rules. So it's like, okay, so we had to change it. But now it's the bland title, the approved version. You actually go to survivethequarantine.com. We have the two titles juxtaposed, and one of them says, Amazon approved, and the other one says reality approved. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes, and if anybody can capitalize on marketing like that, it's the two of you guys. So I'm really excited. So some of us have been furloughed. Some of us have just been straight up fired. Some of us have had to reposition to win. As a professional speaker, I lost about 70% of my scheduled talks between, February and the next speech I'm given isn't until July at Freedom Fest, one of our favorite largest gathering of free minds, the largest liberty and economic conference in the world, where you won't be banned. And you guys can be on my show again, as well as join the Renaissance Man, Jim Woods.
There you go.
But that's my first engagement. So I've lost all of my, speaking gigs because venues were canceled. And every single one of my gigs had more than 10 people scheduled to be at it. So, remote working, some of these big conferences are pivoting and trying to go to that, but not all of them have been able to do that successfully. Yeah. Some people are sitting at home. I have friends that are entrepreneurs. Their businesses have been shuttered because they were in entertainment or food service or in the health or beauty fields. And other people are being forced to work and don't want to be out, but they're stuck if they're in an essential need business, or they're having to figure out, how do I do my job from my house with my kids, with my spouse hanging out? We've got cabin fever. What's the answer? What's the solution to working in this new world? Because let's face it, we're not going to be able to go back.
Yep. We're not really going to go back to those levels of security, let's say, of logistical. Well, we go to the office and we do that, and then we come home and we do that. So remote work is the front end piece of a greater piece, which we call the virtualization of companies. We basically put together a team of consultants and entrepreneurs that have been, managing remote work clients and remote work as a whole, and also virtualized companies for decades, let's say. And so what happens is we are thrust into this new era that the adoption curve was slowly getting there, right? People were more and more doing these kinds of remote work and virtual teams, distributed companies. But then because of this whole crisis, now we're being obligated, we're thrust into this new reality, and now we have to figure out, okay, so what are what are the 55, the 75, the 250 questions that we need to ask, and we need to make sure that we know about what we're doing in our company with all the workflows, with all the, I was just reading an article in The Economist this week precisely, where the EU members are getting together to, discuss policy and everything, and they're doing it via Zoom. And it's crazy because it's like very chaotic. People are not muting their microphones. They have like weird camera angles. They have, not right lighting. So like, yeah, basically the book is aimed at two groups of people, and the two groups of people, we call that the dumbbell effect. And the dumbbell effect is basically the group of people on one side who think this is so easy. Look, everybody can do this. I know, duh, nobody needs to read a book about that, because they think it's just so easy. And then the other group of people who think, wow, this is too hard. I'll never get this. This is just impossible. So both of those groups are fundamentally wrong. It is a lot harder than what it seems, just from a casual use with your friends, and it's also probably not impossible to do, but you need to walk somebody through all the different logistical aspects of hardware, of software, of logistics, of what happens if there's an error, what happens if there's a connection problem, if somebody drops, if all those pieces. One of the members of the team, for example, works for a Fortune 200 company, and he coordinates many different teams. And when you have a meeting of 60, 80, 120 people online, and everybody has a problem of maybe a delay of 20 or 30 seconds in connecting, well, multiply that, times 120, and you get a big delay of people just kind of like, oh my gosh. And so that kills the whole meeting, that kills everything about the whole experience.
Well, you lose your momentum. I mean, how do you create meeting momentum when you've answered a question, but somebody doesn't hear it for 30 seconds, and there's this, so it's like message sent is not message received. You got these weird communications, and I don't even know how you would be productive online with a meeting with 120 people with inputs, for sure.
Yep. So basically what we did is we took a step-by-step approach of, if you were one of our she wasn't intended to be our main audience, but this 73-year-old lady left us a review on Amazon saying, hey, I was locked up at home, I didn't know what I was gonna do, I picked up the book and I kind of followed the instructions, and now she's getting together with her church friends, and she's doing this. She never would have done it before, certainly not our audience, but she picked it up and she thought it was helpful, and is up there. So we thought it was a nice testimonial.
Well, that's pretty exciting, to be able to have one of those silver surfers in that generation be able to do something outside the expected wheelhouse. So, I think about the book that Tim Ferriss wrote, The 4-Hour Work Week, and how he kind of set this remote work idea in place for some people that were wanting to become part of his coined term, the new rich, and really kind of escape. But now that people are doing this, when we get back from the break, I would like to have you answer that question that is pretty much, how do employers maximize this now that they got forced into doing this? Now they can get over the hump. You're listening to Gabe Batista on Unlock Your Wealth Today. We'll be right back with more right after this. Cabin fever got you down? Well, I've got the cure. Join me as I speak live for the entrepreneurship and business track at the largest gathering of free minds this summer. For Unlock Your Wealth fans, they have extended the early bird registration for Freedom Fest until April 30th. Just go to my website at unlockyourwealth.com and click on the Freedom Fest link so you can join us this summer and learn more about your liberty and your wealth, as we have top speakers like Steve Forbes, John Stossel, Dr. Mark Skousen, the Way of the Renaissance Man and #1 market analyst Jim Woods, economist Stephen Moore, and of course Jordan Peterson, the Anthem Film Festival, and so much more. So to get the details and grab your early bird discount now, visit unlockyourwealth.com/freedomfest. See you there. Gabe, thanks again for being a part of the show. This has been a really good informational segment so far. I asked
Great.
you before the break,
Hmm.
what can employers do since tippy toeing in it. You know how like employers
Yep.
when new technology comes in, they want to like create a team and explore it and see if it works. Well,
Sure. Yeah.
it's baptism by fire now. So
Absolutely.
they're in it whether they like it or not. So, what are
Yep.
some tips for my entrepreneur friends that are watching that can help them organize their workforce faster and fix the gaps of all of the technology challenges you were talking about in the first segment?
Yeah, so we're calling this an inflection moment, right? As opposed to a deflection moment. So an inflection moment meaning this thing changes the trajectory forever, right? It
Mm-hmm.
just from here on it changes. And I always thought it was interesting how all these companies who never really had any kind of remote work in place, they say, well, guys, work from home. Oh, okay. Well, why are they working from home now and not before?
Mm-hmm.
What was it so difficult to do before? Well, now
Right.
you're forced, right? So now they're trying to figure out. So there are a couple of things in chapter 9 of the book. We actually talk about interviewing and actually getting candidates and people for your organization, and to be able to do that all that remotely. From and that chapter is our collaborator was my business partner's brother, Michael, who works in recruiting, recruits, lots of people, places millions of dollars worth of people every year. So we talked about that and how to do that remotely.
And that's
And
Michael Mendoza.
that's Michael Mendoza, exactly. And so, for example, one of the things that this is forcing companies to do is not only to recruit differently, which we talked about, but also to have productive teams and productive planning and productive performance, all tracked remotely. So we're going to have to move from a time where we had, well, we don't really know what people do during the day, but as long as they come in at 9 and they leave at 5, we're going to be happy with that. Well, that's not going to work in remote work, because now you can't see if somebody's actually working or not working. What are they doing? Actually, some companies are trying to keep track of how long people are logged in and stuff, which I think is a terrible idea, because again, you got to realize that the reason we had the workday, the way that the workday flows is because of the nature of the having to commute, having to be at an office, right? Now that you don't have that, now you have this breaks down the let's say the rules to the game, and now we have to come up with new rules. Okay, what are the new rules? Well, perhaps the new rules are guided by goals and by deadlines and by performance, and not by how many hours you work, because in essence,
Right.
nobody really cares how many hours you work as long as it gets done, right? For all
Exactly.
for all we care, as entrepreneurs, I'm involved, in many businesses, and I oversee people, and I have people that work for me, and I always tell them, this is my thing. Look, if you can snap your fingers and make this happen, you still get paid. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it takes you a long time or a little time, as long as it gets done. So we're having to come up with all these different ways now, and I think companies are going to experiment and kind of figure out, okay, how do we keep track of what they're doing? How do we keep track of if they're motivated? How do we keep track if they're communicating? How do we know if people are passing on as many, let's say, hallway talk and ideas and all of that now they're not in the same, we call it in the book, we call it the same time, different place, working environments. What does that look like? And so, yeah, right now we're all trying to figure out, we give a lot of advice on all those aspects, because managing a company, it's a little bit different than calling your grandma or your cousins
Mm-hmm.
once a week or a month or a year, right? It's not this. All these meetings have to take place at a particular time, and they have to be reliable. Again, a lot of the people who think this is so easy, they've never been late for a crucial meeting or a pitch or an interview that you have to be at a particular time, and the connection has to be right, the video has to be right, the signal, the light, the background can't be distracting, all that, so that the technology can fade away, and then people can focus on the interaction and the information and the communication they're passing back and forth.
Right. And it's as an employer for the longest time, I had a little bit of a challenge with that because if something wasn't being delivered on its stated deadline, I wanted to be able to walk down the hallway and,
Yeah,
figuratively slap my
yeah,
employee. I used to always say, I want you within slapping distance. so I could make sure that my timelines were always abided by. But I had, as an employer, because I mean, that's, what I grew up with.
Sure.
That's,
Yeah.
I always had to be present and accounted for when I was an employee. And so once I made that switch from employee to employer, I understood how that meant, because the perception is that you're out horsing around if you're not in the office, although you could be horsing around in the office and just as ineffective. But what I had to learn or let go of is that it doesn't matter where somebody is, and especially with this younger generation that has been so digitally focused, that they can be productive, and it doesn't matter where they are unless you have sensitive information like files that can't be kept electronically, or stuff that has to be operated from particular machines that need to be in a physical location. That if they're going to be productive for you and they're challenged by the work and they want to rise to the occasion, they'll do it whether they're down the hallway or halfway around the world. And that's what I had to learn to let go of early on in order to transition my business to be more effective. And now, if you didn't make that leap already with what's going on in the marketplace and, the virtual economic shutdown we're experiencing, you're in that baptism by fire. And I know it's tough for some people to change because routine feels good, even if it isn't good for you.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. We always find it interesting that, again, all these paradigms, all these ways of modes of operating are kind of like they end up being the goal as opposed to the means by which we reach the goal, which is how they started, right? That's why we come up with processes and systems so that we get to an end goal, right? But they can become like the goal in itself, which is not, right? The goal is not to be in the office from 9 to 5.
Okay, so give me 3 things that an entrepreneur or business owner right now can find in your book that they need to focus on first. Just give me like 2 or 3 things that they can find in your book that they need to be doing right now to transition and maximize this baptism by fire into remote work. What are 3 things?
So the number 1 would be technology. First, you got to figure out what are all the logistical pieces of the technology. So there are some platforms that are becoming very popular, and maybe a lot of people are now hearing about Zoom, right? Zoom went from having 20 million people or something like 15 to 10 million at the beginning of the year, to now they have over 200 million users. I mean, this is it's just exploded, right?
Right.
So but then that's just one piece. We in the book we talk about something that we term tool chains, and the tool chains is what are all the different tools that you need to order in a particular way to complete the workflow, because most tools will tell you, all you got to do is do this, and this is all out of the box, and there's nothing that is out of the box. If you have experience with software, you have to tie things up together, right? So we talk about all those different technological pieces and the logistics behind that technology. So technology being number 1. Second is like the socio-cultural, the almost the intangibles, the etiquette that we have to develop in video conferencing.
Like
now,
a virtual Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, because now like this little square that I live, that I'm, that Heather is watching me, that I'm watching her, right? This becomes a representation of who we are, right? So we need to figure out, okay, what are the things that are rude in a video conferencing that maybe are somewhat not so bad in a
like if I just started to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or people are always, if they're on the phone, if some people are using the video and some people are not, all those, we talk about all those things in the book, which is, is very key. And then the third thing is actually then how does that apply for my company, given the technology that I have and given all the different processes? Okay, so what do I have? Do I have meetings, or do I have project management? Do I have customer service? Do I have a selling that I need to do? Do I have a hiring that I need to do? So like each one of those things that I just mentioned has its own tool chains and has its own procedural because again, this is what people think is that this is so easy. They don't have to worry about, or they don't have to think about this. And really, you have to think about this more now, because it's almost like when you're face to face, you can kind of like not worry about these kinds of things because you're right there, right? But since you're not there and you're not communicating all the time, you can't, like Heather says, go by and smack somebody or chase them in a hallway or meet them in a hallway or in the bathroom or something and remind them of something. Now you don't have those moments. So now your communication, your workflow, everything has to be that much more efficient to be able to. If not, then it's almost like you're working part-time, and that's not the idea. The idea is to cut overhead, cut all the excess, the things that weren't needed, and take what you have and actually make it more productive, not kind of productive.
So, well, Gabe, this has been very illuminating. Thank you so much for your time today. Now, you are a business consultant in addition to one of the co-authors or co-conspirators, as you like to call yourself, with the Mendochas and the rest of your co-authors. If folks want to get the book, if they want consulting services, how can they go about finding you?
So definitely go check out our book in Amazon. Again, the title of the book is Remote Work for a Better World. And you can just find it there. If you just put it remote work, we're like one of the top, if not the top listing there in Amazon. We're number one new release in running meetings in Amazon. We're like top 50, like in 3 different categories. So definitely go there. You can also go to gabebautista.com and find more about me. Again, you can reach me there. We all have author pages, so you can find more information there. And then if you wanted to have more information specifically about this book, you'll remember this URL: survivethequarantine.com.
Well, thank you again, and congratulations on your #1 achievements with the book and continued success. And for those of you without a pencil, never fear, unlockyourwealthtoday.com is here, where you can visit Gabe's show page, get the links to all of his amazing resources, and so much more. For the maestro of Moolah, Michael Terry, I'm Heather Wagenhals. Now go out and unlock your wealth today.
UnlockYourWealthToday.com is produced by Heather Wagenhals and the Unlock Your Wealth Foundation. UnlockYourWealthToday.com and its affiliates are copyrighted 2018 with all rights reserved. For more information on the Keys to Riches Financial Wellness Series, please visit our website at www.unlockyourwealthtoday.com.